This leads us to another Alexandrian heresy called Apollinarianism, named after Apollinarius, who is trying to answer the same question everybody else is. Who is Jesus? What has God done in sending Jesus? How can a human being be God the Son? And here is his answer. Well, God is spirit, right? The Bible says so. So, the Logos, the Word, the second person of the Trinity, took the place of the human spirit or mind or soul of Jesus. Jesus has a human body, but rather than having a human mind or soul, the Logos is his mind or soul. That's why my pop culture analogy for you is the Terminator. It looks sort of like one of us, sort of Mr. Universe version of one of us. But inside, he's not. He's something else entirely. He's not human. Inside, just outside. Apollinarians argue the same thing of Jesus. That's why he knows everything. He doesn't have a human mind, subject to the limits of a human mind. He's the Logos. This didn't get a lot of followers, at least not formally. It was condemned quickly enough. Why? Well, here's one of the ways the church reasoned in a slogan. That which is not assumed is not redeemed. If Jesus didn't assume a fully human life, then human beings aren't redeemed. He's fully divine, but he's not fully human. He's only partly human. And where this causes problems for the biblical story itself is, then the question arises, well, is he really tempted? If he has no human spirit, soul, mind? If his soul is the immortal Logos, then did he suffer? Did Jesus die? Or did just his body die? You burn away Terminator's living tissue, you still have a Terminator. Really, the only thing that's changed is the appearance. Notice one other feature that you keep running into in these heresies. This makes divine spirit or mind close enough to human mind that the two are competitive and one can replace the other. It makes human mind out to be enough like God's mind that one can stand in for the other. Are we really so similar? Apollinarianism vanishes pretty quickly as a formal school of thought. But think about churches that don't embrace the teaching formally, but which never entertain or dwell in the humanity of Jesus' mind. Let me put it to you this way. If Jesus isn't the strongest, like physically strongest human being in the history of the world, is that okay? Are you okay with that idea? That like Goliath might be able to beat him arm wrestling? You're not like, but he's God. Naturally, as God, he's going to have God biceps, you know. So, what about this? What if Jesus isn't the best chess player in the world? What if Garry Kasparov could beat him at chess? Or what if Mozart could outcompose him? What if Jesus doesn't score the highest on an IQ test of any human being ever? Is that a problem? If it feels like a problem, and I think you weren't laughing the same way as when I talked about arm wrestling. We've adopted a kind of double standard that his muscles can be human muscles, and we don't think of divine muscles because there are no divine muscles, except in some metaphorical sense. But have you thought about Jesus having a human brain that functions like other human brains, that needs to sleep, that needs glucose? that processes one thought at a time, that learns things the hard way, like you're learning things the hard way. Have you thought about Jesus learning Aramaic the way you learned your first language? Trying out words, not always being right, learning that way. You're probably okay with Jesus learning to walk that way at 1 year old, when he's still trying to connect with all of his parts the way all of us did, and hobbling around and stumbling and falling down and getting back up and trying again and eventually learning how to walk, right? You're not like, oh, God just fell. God's sense of balance is pretty underdeveloped. That doesn't trouble you, right? But it's the same phenomenon. Muscle memory and language memory are both memory. They both work the same way. We might not be used to thinking about Jesus having to learn things the hard way. Not getting 100 on every test in school. Not knowing French or Mac OS. Because he's a first century Jew. There wasn't French. There weren't computers. Is this the place where we look, or where evangelicals look most inclined towards heresy? I remember running a few of these thoughts by the worship leader at one of my churches in the past. And I was like, well, he's human. And the answer always came back, but he's God. Like, pair of fours. And he's like, 4 aces. Divinity trumps humanity. Why don't we apply the same logic to his power, to his mortality, right? I mean, if he's weak, he'd probably beat me at anything, being a blue-collar laborer. But he's not all powerful in the human sense of muscles. He's not even all-knowing in the human sense of knowing everything, right? Because he says so. He says, no one knows the day or the hour of the coming of the Son of Man. Not the angels in heaven, not even the Son, but only the Father. So humanly speaking, there are things he doesn't know. He's subject to ignorance. He's wise. He's awfully wise. And divinely speaking, he's all-knowing. He is wisdom itself. He is life itself. And we live with the paradox that life died, and that power is made weak. Maybe the same paradox is available to us to understand an all-knowing but ignorant, divinely all-knowing but humanly ignorant life. I think it works pretty well. If Jesus doesn't know when he's returning, then he has to live in trust of the Father, right? That's not just for us to do. That's built into the relations that are fundamental to all reality. So, think about the implications of Jesus' full humanity, as well as the implications of Jesus' full divinity. A couple of you look a little bummed by the thought that he's not the Terminator. I find this really helpful, knowing that he really is tempted. He really can intercede for us, because he knows what it's like not to know. We really have a high priest that's been made in every way like us, except without sin. And it's not a sin not to know. It's not a sin not to get 100 on a test. Right? It's not a sin not to run a 0-minute mile. He knows me. He knows you. He knows where we are in life. He knows the fatigue of learning something new.